carry on here with the Windows registry. Early versions of Microsoft operating systems like MS-DOS used the old-fashioned system, which is what Linux still does, which is there's a little text file for the configuration of every application. Apache has its own, and every app has its own. And so you have to hunt for the text files, and whatever developers decide to put in there, and wherever they decide to put it, just sort of scattered all over the place. Windows decided, for some reason, starting with Windows 95, to make this binary object called the registry that would include all the customization settings for every app and for every feature in Windows all in one place, sort of. Although, like Microsoft's work usually is, it's an amazing mess. It's an assemblage of like 12 different files scattered all over the place. Anyway, but it's real important to learn and to use the registry. The registry contains a ton of useful forensic information, and it's also very confusing when you first see it. There are many, many, many layers deep. You're typically like 8 or 9 folders deep finding things, and it's easy to get lost. And by the way, the registry is a living object on a Windows machine. If you change anything in the registry, this is like opening a car while it's running and reaching with wrenches and undoing things. There's no save, there's no undo. Anything you change takes effect immediately. So you can destroy your machine in a hurry. One thing I heard about a guy doing is he decided didn't want to get infected with malware. She went to the root hives in the registry and set them all to read only. And after that, your machine will not boot, and there's no way to fix it. You just have to reinstall Windows. And although there is something called remote registry I've used to get past something like that once, but anyway, that's why you have to be aware. Messing with the registry is dangerous. You don't want amateurs poking around in there. But there's a ton of goodies in there. And so we're going to do this. So anyway, so there's 5, they call them hives. They look like folders, but they call them hives for some reason. And so there's 5 root hives. HKey classes root contains the file extension associations, which is a Microsoft thing. On a Linux machine, you do not need to put file extensions on your files, and they don't mean anything. But on a Windows machine, the .docs open in Word, and the .jpegs are images, and it knows what program to use tied to the file name extension, and that's here in the root, in the classes root. This is the current user, which cannot populate until you log in. When you first boot up the machine, it has an HKey users hive, which has all the information about all the users, but it doesn't know which one is current until you log in. So not only are there 5 hives, they are not independent objects. This one is actually just a subset of that one. It's the part of this one tied to the current user. So it's not 5 independent folders like it looks. Here, the HKey local machine is populated by the hardware settings as it boots up. So it copies information about the hard drive and everything as it boots up. And HKey current config has information about the hardware that's necessary during the startup process. All right, and so anyway, it looks like this. You have the 5 root hives, and then you expand them, and there's subhives under here. And typically to find the good stuff, you go 5 or 10 folders deep. And it's sort of tedious, and it takes students a while to get used to that. After a while, you get used to it. I remember for the first year or two, I was really clumsy and scared of messing in the registry, because it's easy to get lost. All right, Microsoft added features in different versions of Windows. Vista added automatic defragmentation, this ridiculous thing called ReadyBoost that would try to use USB memory to add to the RAM, which turned out to be a misbegotten idea. Although, one of the executives at Microsoft announced when they brought out Vista that they were going to have a feature that would take RAM from other machines that were not using all their RAM on your local area network and use it for your programs to make it faster. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome. My data will automatically go to somebody else's machine where they can steal it. That's totally amazing and horrible. And they never actually implemented that for some reason. Somebody must have had an epiphany. Wait a minute, that's insane. That can't go anywhere good. Anyway.
They're trying to do the same thing now with the data centers.
They are, with the data. Well.
You try to get all the memory to there's a memory pool and a CPU or something.
Yeah, well, you can set up a pool of memory or a pool of storage deliberately to achieve this in a data center environment, and that's not insane. But just doing it for random desktop machines without telling you is insane.
People use that as a shortcut to AI.
Yeah, that's right. Anyway, then there's shadow copy, which is extremely useful for your functionality and also for forensic examiners. It now makes automatic backups of files in the shadow copies. And so you can find old versions of files there. So if people are trying to change things and hide them, you can find the old versions often there. And it's got hibernation file, of course, which is if you hibernate the machine instead of shutting it down, so it'll boot up faster and remember everything you were doing, then the contents of RAM are stored in a hibernation file. Windows 7 added biometric logins and jump lists like Macs have. So when you go to the bottom, you can right-click an icon and see the recent files opened with that program. So you have basically a whole bunch of start buttons down here is essentially what you have, which is very handy. And that is, of course, very handy because now you know what's recently been happening. So the Microsoft Word jump list will have like the last 10 or 15 Word files that were accessed and so on. So once again, there's a record of everything you've been doing. And Backup and Restore Center can back up the thing. BitLocker encrypts the hard drive and also can be used to encrypt portable devices. I don't know what the deal is with ownership of a USB device. A touchscreen was an idea, a few of them around. Sticky notes, didn't use those much. But here's the registry Hive files. These are the fundamental files that store the registry: system, SAM, security, software, and then ntuser.dat for each user. So when you make an image of the registry, which we'll do in the project, it consists of copying these files. And then you have an image of the registry you can examine for forensic artifacts, and there's all kinds of goodies in there. All the USB devices that have been connected, what programs people have been launching, and all sorts of good stuff is in the registry. Event Viewer is Microsoft's automatic logging system. Event Viewer is the view into it. Microsoft logs a lot of things by default, so that's another place where it's recording every folder's been opened, every program's been launched, and so on. And it's not intended to spy on people. It's intended to be there to help you fix problems with the machine. But it does, in fact, keep a record of everything that happens. And your web browser, of course, keeps track of everything you're doing too. It's got a history. If you open a private window, it doesn't put data in the history, but there's still some records kept. In fact, Google, I think, just settled a lawsuit because Chrome Incognito means it doesn't store any data on your system like cookies, but of course, the server you're talking to is storing data like Facebook and stuff, and they decided that their wording wasn't clear enough about that. But anyway, so the web browser has all kinds of stuff. It has a cache which stores fragments of web pages and images and stuff you've been viewing even when you're not there anymore, so it'll load faster next time. And so, and this is why it keeps a record of the searches you've made. This is why you always hear this on the news. They arrested somebody and the evidence consisted of their searches. Like a wife killed her husband, and a week before she was searching what's an untraceable poison to kill your husband. So your search history is stored and easy to recover from your browser. Files are grouped together in a variety of ways, which I find annoying. I'm always trying to figure out how to turn it off, but they group it by indexing and such. And so, and there's federated search. We can query external data sources. I've never used this. But anyway, that's Windows 8. The only thing I think everyone noticed about Windows 8 is the start button was gone. That's when I said, I'm going to get a Mac. I can't stand this stuff anymore. And I think a whole lot of us moved to the Mac after Microsoft came out with this misbegotten hunk of garbage. And Windows 10 got good again. Windows 10 is pretty good for Windows. And it had the Edge browser, which replaces Internet Explorer and works pretty much the same. Cortana. Does anybody use Cortana? I don't even use Siri. And Siri kind of works. And there's the Amazon one, Alexa. I guess if you have a smart speaker, you can talk to it, but this seemed to be a bad idea. They pushed this stuff out. Nobody actually seemed to use it. Anyway, there is the voice control Cortana in principle, but I don't know who would use it. What's going to happen now is Microsoft in Windows 11 is building ChatGPT into everything. AI in everything. AI in Notepad, AI in Paint, AI on the desktop, just everywhere. And you'll probably use that because that's probably actually useful. So anyway, all right, let's try another Kahoot. So, Microsoft is now in the unusual position of being an industry leader in AI. They're normally pretty late to the game, but they're the one that really bet on the right horse in AI, and they're way ahead of everybody. And I hear a lot of good things about GitHub Copilot to help you code. People say it's great. I haven't got it working myself yet, but I really should. What's that?
I've been playing with Voltron before.
Right. Yeah, one thing I noticed is Claude is best at writing code. Yeah, Claude too. But GitHub Copilot is probably even better. I don't think it's free, or it wasn't free. Maybe it's free now. GitHub Copilot is the one that gets a lot of attention. it's automating what Googling for it on Stack Exchange, but it's trained on everybody's, yeah. And apparently it writes good code, because like Bard writes crappy code, it doesn't run. And I haven't used ChatGPT, but I expect that. Claude 2, though, writes pretty good code. But, well, you know, I think GitHub is probably best. Specializing just in that purpose, you would think that would be the best. All the rest of these are using a model that was trained to just speak English on the whole web, and then trying to get it to speak Python or something. You would think it's really not going to be too good at that. But of course, the point of GitHub is to have all that lovely training data of code. So this is what people say. A lot of people say this is the thing of the future. It's going to be access to data. If you have, that's why Elon Musk, of course, that thinks Twitter is the most accurate source of knowledge in the world, he really says this stuff, thinks that his AI, XAI, is going to be winner because he has access to all that Twitter data, and that's the best data. But you know, only for, I guess, the Steve Bannon crowd is the only. Other ones will tell you like false facts, like, you know, Biden won the election and you should take the vaccine. But if you go on XAI, it'll give you the truth, I guess. Well, you know, it's for the red-pilled people, I guess. It's interesting how many people got red-pilled. A bunch of people are reasonable, just got red-pilled and went nuts on us. It's like a wave of madness going through the country. But of course, it happened before. Joseph McCarthy was the same thing. He actually fooled everybody with his fake list and got a whole bunch of people believing there were all these communist agents everywhere. It happens every now and then that this crazy idea just floods through the nation like a disease. All right, so what registry Hive has your current desktop settings? All right, that's HT current user. It doesn't know it until you log in. Then it has your desktop and your background and your start menu and all that stuff. That's all stored in the ntuser.dat file for your user. All right, so which artifact contains copies of volume, all or part of a volume? Very handy, automatic backups. It's on by default now.
Oh, wow.
I know, it was an option brought in on Windows 2000 server, and it was a hit, so now I built it in all versions of Windows, and now it even backs up your user files. So, yeah, that's volume shadow copy. You control it at the command line with vssadmin. Very useful. And it's included in forensic tools like Autopsy.
Cool.
Yeah, very nice. All right, which feature encrypts a hard drive? BitLocker is Microsoft's tool. It's very powerful, very good. It's not always turned on. It should be for portable devices because you're likely to lose the whole computer. There are occasionally ways to get past it, but they're pretty exotic, like freezing the RAM, and there are other ones. And sometimes under certain conditions, you'll find a copy of the key somewhere, but generally it's considered quite good. And of course, if you get a machine and the drive is encrypted, then unless you can find the key or get the owner to log in, you're pretty much not going to get anything off of there. That's the whole point of it. All the data is encrypted. And this is something forensic people got real upset about when 5 or 8 years ago everybody started encrypting stuff. They said, forensics is going to end, we're not going to get in anymore. But you know what happened is we moved to live response, where you just take data from a running machine. And now, of course, everybody's using cloud services. So your data is up there in the cloud, even if I can't get in your desktop. This is why, you know, that people make a big deal about the iPhone not letting the law enforcement get on it because iPhones are all encrypted, and Apple will totally not help law enforcement get in, or so they say. But you typically have it all in iCloud, and they can totally get in there. But of course, this came out like 2 weeks ago that in fact there's a secret backdoor, apparently for the government, in all the last 4 versions of iPhone. So apparently, for at least national security issues, they are not really hiding it. It's all just a posture for marketing to pretend to protect your privacy. Although, to be fair, they're probably trying to protect your privacy as much as they can. The problem is, since the Patriot Act, you cannot say no to the government in America anymore. So it's pretty harsh, but that's the way it is. All right. Anyway, which registry hive has the file name extension associations? HKey classes root is what associates executables with file name extensions. Nice. Bob Dixon, that looks like a real name. That looks like a real name too, good. Maybe only one filled, maybe not enough information. Have you got the last name that I can add to it? You want to? D will do, in case there's more than one.
Yeah.
Good, all right, good. All right, anyway, that's fine, I just want to make sure you get your points.